The magic of connection. Once upon a time, in a land not so far away, there lived a curious young man named Alexander. He was always tinkering with gadgets and exploring the wonders of sound. Alexander lived in a small, cozy village surrounded by lush green hills and sparkling rivers. The villagers often saw him wandering about, listening to the birds and pondering the mysteries of their songs. One sunny morning, as Alexander strolled through the village market, he overheard a conversation that piqued his interest. "We need a way to talk to each other from far away," said an elderly villager to his friend. "My sister lives in the next village, and it takes days to get any news." Alexander's eyes sparkled with excitement. "A way to talk from far away," he mused. "What a splendid idea!" Alexander hurried back to his workshop, a small, cluttered space filled with all sorts of peculiar objects. He picked up his notebook and began to sketch out his ideas. He worked day and night, fueled by the desire to help the villagers and create something magical. One evening, as Alexander was deeply engrossed in his work, there was a knock on the door. It was his dear friend, Thomas. "Alexander, what are you working on so tirelessly?" Thomas asked, peering over his friend's shoulder. "I'm trying to invent a machine that can carry our voices across great distances." Alexander replied with a smile. "Imagine being able to talk to someone miles away without leaving your home." Thomas's eyes widened with amazement. "That sounds like magic. How will you do it?" "Well," said Alexander, "I believe sound travels through vibrations. If I can find a way to send these vibrations over a wire, it might just work." Days turned into weeks, and Alexander's workshop became a hive of activity. He experimented with various materials and devices, often burning the midnight oil. He used cups, strings, and all sorts of contraptions, but none seemed to work as he had hoped. One particularly rainy afternoon, Alexander was feeling rather disheartened. He sat by his window, watching the raindrops dance on the glass, when his mother entered the room. "Alexander, you've been working so hard. Why don't you take a break and have some tea?" she suggested, her eyes filled with concern. "Thank you, Mother," Alexander sighed. "But I feel like I'm so close to a breakthrough. I just need to figure out how to make the vibrations travel more clearly." His mother smiled and handed him a cup of tea. "Sometimes, a little rest can bring clarity. Remember, even the tiniest spark can light up the darkest night." Inspired by his mother's words, Alexander took a deep breath and decided to give it another try. That night, he had a dream. In his dream, he saw a magical wire made of copper, glowing with a golden light. The wire carried voices through the air, connecting people across great distances. Alexander woke up with a start. "Copper wire," he exclaimed. "That's the key." He rushed to his workshop and immediately began working with a spool of copper wire he had found in the village market. He connected one end to a small device that could generate vibrations and the other end to a receiver. After hours of meticulous adjustments, he was ready to test his invention. "Thomas!" Alexander called out excitedly. "Come quickly!" Thomas hurried over, his curiosity piqued. "What is it, Alexander?" "I think I've finally done it," Alexander said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Let's test it out. You speak into this end, and I'll listen on the other." Thomas took a deep breath and spoke into the device. "Hello, Alexander. Can you hear me?" Alexander's heart raced as he pressed his ear to the receiver. And then, as clear as day, he heard Thomas's voice. "Hello, Thomas. I can hear you." The two friends danced around the workshop, their laughter filling the room. They knew that they had just created something truly magical. Word of Alexander's invention spread quickly throughout the village. People came from far and wide to see the wondrous machine that could carry voices across distances. They marveled at the magic of it all and celebrated Alexander's ingenuity. But the journey was far from over. Alexander knew that his invention was just the beginning. He needed to refine it, make it more reliable, and ensure that it could be used by everyone. As the villagers celebrated, Alexander and Thomas sat together under the stars, dreaming of a world where people could talk to each other no matter how far apart they were. "This is just the beginning, Thomas," Alexander said with a smile. Imagine the possibilities. We could connect the entire world. Thomas nodded, his eyes filled with wonder. Yes, Alexander. The world is about to change, and it's all because of you. And so, with hearts full of hope and minds brimming with ideas, Alexander and Thomas continued their quest to bring the magic of connection to everyone. Little did they know that their journey would be filled with challenges, triumphs, and the promise of a brighter future. The next morning, Alexander awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that to truly succeed, he would need to perfect his invention and share it with the world. But first, he needed to test it further and ensure its reliability. Thomas, Alexander called out, we need to conduct more experiments. We must be certain our invention works in different conditions. Thomas nodded eagerly. Let's do it, Alexander. What's the plan? They decided to test the device over a longer distance. They strung the copper wire between Alexander's workshop and Thomas's home, which was a good distance away. Thomas took the receiver and hurried home, while Alexander stayed back with the transmitter. Ready? Alexander called out. Ready, Thomas replied. Alexander spoke into the transmitter. Thomas, can you hear me? After a brief moment, Thomas's voice crackled through the receiver. I hear you loud and clear, Alexander. They conducted several more tests, trying different materials and varying the length of the wire. With each successful trial, their confidence grew. The villagers, too, became increasingly fascinated by the magical device. One day, an important visitor arrived in the village. It was Mr. Hubbard, a wealthy merchant known for his interest in new inventions. He had heard tales of Alexander's device and wanted to see it for himself. Good day, Mr. Hubbard, Alexander greeted him warmly. I've heard much about your interest in innovations. Please, come see what we've created. Mr. Hubbard examined the device closely. Remarkable. This could revolutionize communication. Tell me, Alexander, what do you call this invention? Alexander thought for a moment. I call it the telephone, sir. It means distant voice. Mr. Hubbard was impressed. The telephone, indeed. Alexander, this invention has the potential to change the world. I would like to support you in developing it further. With my resources, we can bring this marvel to every corner of the land. Alexander's heart swelled with excitement and gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. With your support, we can truly make a difference. And so began a new chapter in Alexander's journey. With Mr. Hubbard's backing, Alexander and Thomas worked tirelessly to improve the telephone. They refined the design, ensuring it was more robust and easier to use. Mr. Hubbard helped them set up workshops and train craftsmen to produce the devices. One sunny afternoon, as Alexander and Thomas were putting the final touches on a new batch of telephones, a young girl named Lily approached them. She was holding a small, worn-out toy in her hands. Mr. Alexander, Mr. Thomas, she said shyly, my father is a fisherman, and he often goes out to sea for days. I miss him so much. Can your telephone help me talk to him? Alexander knelt down to her level, a warm smile on his face. Of course, Lily. That's exactly why we made the telephone, to bring people closer, no matter the distance. Lily's eyes sparkled with hope. Thank you, Mr. Alexander. With the telephone now in production, the villagers began using it to stay connected with their loved ones. People no longer had to wait days or weeks for news. The telephone brought joy and comfort, connecting hearts across miles. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Alexander received a special visitor. It was his mother, her eyes filled with pride and love. Alexander, she said, embracing him, you've done something truly wonderful. You've brought magic into our lives. Alexander smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Thank you, Mother. I couldn't have done it without the support of everyone here. The village held a grand celebration to honor Alexander and Thomas. Lanterns adorned the streets, and music filled the air. People danced and sang, their hearts light with happiness. Mr. Hubbard raised a toast. To Alexander and Thomas, for bringing the magic of connection to our lives, may the telephone continue to unite us all. As the festivities continued, Alexander and Thomas stood together, looking out at the joyful faces of their friends and neighbors. They knew that their journey had only just begun. Thomas, Alexander said, we've created something truly magical. But there's still so much more to do. Imagine a world where everyone, no matter how far apart, can stay connected. Thomas nodded, his eyes shining with determination. Yes, Alexander. Together, we can make that dream a reality. And so, with hearts full of hope and minds brimming with ideas, Alexander and Thomas set forth on their next adventure. They traveled far and wide, sharing the magic of the telephone with people everywhere. Their invention brought joy, love, and connection to countless lives, making the world a smaller, more united place. And they all lived happily ever after, forever connected by the magic of the telephone.